So I do seem to be picking up some sound. Am I audible? Am I audible? That seems to be something. So I have a bit of a headache. I have a bit of a headache right now, but I missed reading to strangers on the internet. So I kind of wanted to just chill. This obviously isn't my normal setup. I don't even know what my normal setup is anymore. Just something very chill, something very relaxed. And obviously relaxation is best with an existential crisis. So we're going to be doing a bit of psychopolitics tonight. And this is less cozy than normal. This has been a very rough few weeks for me personally, so it may be a bit more scattershot than normal, but it's something, and I miss this, and I miss you guys. Here's my apple cider. Grab your drink. Grab your cozy cat, your cozy blanket. My cozy cat is currently hiding in a pile of sweaters, but we'll see. And for people watching, if you just want to quickly drop a comment or something in the live chat to make sure that I'm audible, I would really appreciate that. I still have no idea what's going on with my setup. But anyway. Psychopolitics by, and forgive me, thank you, Fiji. I hope it does too, by byung-chul. I'm audible. Awesome. Okay, thanks guys, gals, gentle thems. I appreciate that, guys. It's honestly, it's work and it's COVID and it's depression, but we're getting through it. So, Chapter 1 of Psychopolitics. Neoliberalism and the New Technologies of Power. The Crisis of Freedom. And if you're following along with this particular copy, it's literally page 1. Here we go. Chapter 1, The Crisis of Freedom. The Exploitation of Freedom. Freedom will prove to have been merely an interlude. Freedom is felt when passing away from one way of living to another until this too turns out to be a form of coercion. Then liberation gives way to... Was this a good pick for me tonight? Jesus. Then liberation gives way to renewed subjugation. Such is the destiny of the subject, literally the one who has been cast down. Today, we do not deem ourselves subjugated subjects, but rather projects, always refashioning and reinventing ourselves. A sense of freedom attends passing from the state of the subject to that of the project. All the same, this projection amounts to a form of compulsion and constraint, indeed, to a more efficient kind of subjectification and subjugation. As a project deeming itself free of external and alien limitations, the I is now subjugating itself to the internal limitations and self-constraints, which are taking the form of a compulsive achievement and optimization. We are living in a particular phase of history. Freedom itself is bringing forth compulsion and constraint. The freedom of can generates even more coercion than the disciplinarian should, which issues commandments and prohibitions. I sit in my chair like a little gremlin, I'm sorry. There we go. I wanted maximal reading positioning. Should has a limit. In contrast, can has none. Thus, the compulsion entailed by can is unlimited, and so we find ourselves in a paradoxical situation. Technically, freedom means the opposite of coercion and compulsion. Being free means being free from constraint. But now freedom itself, which is supposed to be the opposite of constraint, is producing coercion. Psychic maladies such as depression and burnout express a profound crisis of freedom. They represent pathological signs that freedom is now switching over into manifold forms of compulsion. Am I doing what I love, but I have to do it? Am I really free? Also, Fiji, same. This has actually been on my shelf. It was a gift from a distant acquaintance slash a listener to the channel, actually, and I've been meaning to get to it, especially because it's such a wonderfully sleek, slim little volume. I'm like, oh, that's a Low Spoons read right there. So I'm doing it. Low Spoons read indeed. And that was about 2-3 months ago, apparently. Time has gotten so slippery. If I love what I'm doing, but I have to do it, am I really free? Although the achievement subject deems itself free, in reality it is a slave. Insofar as it willingly exploits itself without a master, it is an absolute slave. There is no master forcing the achievement subject to work, yet all the same it is absolutizing bare life and labor. Bare life and labor form two sides of the same coin. Health represents the ideal of bare life. Today's neoliberal slave lacks the sovereignty, indeed the freedom, of the master who, according to Hegel's dialectic, I've been recorrected on how to pronounce Hegel at least a dozen times, and I've gotten it so mixed up at this point that I think it's Hegel. Hugel? Hoggle. We're gonna go with Hoggle. Oh, Fiji. No, absolutely. So 3 days ago, it was Purim, which is a Jewish holiday. I am a Jew. I celebrate Jewish holidays, and it was Purim either yesterday or 3 days ago. And Pesach is coming up soon, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm scared. All of these deadlines are suddenly coming up, and I'm like, next week is either 3 days or 2 years from now. It's very scary. According to Hugel's dialectic, performs no labor at all and only enjoys. For Hobble, the sovereignty of the master derives from his rising above bare life and risking death itself in the process. Such excess, living and enjoying beyond measure, is alien to the slave who worries only about bare life. But counter to what Humble assumed, laboring does not make the slave free. The slave remains enslaved to labor. Now the slave is forcing the master to work too. Today's dialectic of master and slave means the totalization of labor. Yeah. As the entrepreneur of its own self, the neoliberal subject has no capacity for relationships with others that might be free of purpose. Oh, that's interesting. Nor do entrepreneurs know what purpose-free friendship would even look like. Actually, that's a side note. I may make a video about it at some point. Mentally bookmarking discussions about relationship anarchy. Originally, being free meant being among friends. Freedom and friendship have the same root in Indo-European languages. Fundamentally, freedom signifies a relationship. A real feeling of freedom occurs only in a fruitful relationship when being with the others brings happiness. But today's neoliberal regime leads to utter isolation. As such, does not really free us at all. Accordingly, the question now is whether we need to redefine freedom, to reinvent it, in order to escape from the fatal dialectic that is changing freedom into coercion. Neoliberalism represents a highly efficient, indeed an intelligent system for exploiting freedom. Oh, land. That's a yeah. Yeah, I like reading to people. I I love reading to people. It's a cozy intimacy, and I enjoy it deeply. Land, though, is a fun story. I That's a fun conversation. One day I'll talk about it more. Um, but I see ya. I feel ya. Everything that belongs to practices and expressive forms of liberty, emotion, play, and communication comes to be exploited. It is inefficient to exploit people against their will. Allo exploitation yields scant returns. Only when freedom is exploited are returns maximized. Oh no, Nick Land. Let's not talk about Nick Land on someone that's not Nick Land. I'm never reading Nick Land again. JK, I will absolutely revisit some of his earlier works. It's just, and I have to because he's in the CCRU reader, which I was going to do. No, you're fine. You're fine. It's just a really long, funny story because, like, yeah, yes, we can. We can talk about Deleuze and guitar. Actually, a cutie of mine just recently read me an excerpt of Anti-Oedipus, and that was really super. I keep meaning to pick it up, but I'm really intimidated by Deleuze. So we absolutely can talk about Deleuze and guitar. I'm not even going to attempt pronouncing his last name properly. I'm sorry. Pulsating shadow. Oh, I didn't mean this in the way. This no, okay. So I think I had a micro rant about this a little while ago, but this, like, I'm a biker, I'm a full-time motorcyclist, and so this is like a hand signal we use all the time. So I know it in the biker context. I keep forgetting that racists use it in like an ironic, memey way. I'm taking it back. It's mine now. It is interesting to note that Marx also defines freedom in terms of a successful relationship to others. Only in a community with others does each individual have the means of cultivating his gifts of No, I'm not crypto-fascy. I'm like I'm a very wholesome I'm a thank you theory pleep. I completely agree. This belongs to me now. I'm a full-time biker and this belongs to me now. Gifts in all directions, only in community, therefore, is personal freedom possible. From this perspective, being free means nothing other than self-realization with others. Freedom is synonymous with a working community, i.e., a successful one. For Marx, individual freedom represents a ruse, a trick of capital. Free competition, which is based on the idea of individual freedom, simply amounts to the relation of capital to itself as another capital, i.e., the real conduct of capital of capital as capital, like capital cubed. That's a speech impediment happening. Oh, that's stuff in the chat. Oh no, guys. Gentledoms. I'm trying to be more gender neutral in my language. You're so silly. You're so silly. You've stuck around for a while. You know what I mean. Goofballs. That feel when no goth cybernetic philosopher significant other to sit like gremlin style in a chair and read to you. JK, I have like 3 of those. Okay. Capital reproduces by entering into relations. Fuck. Capital reproduces by entering into relations with itself as another form of. I'm being emphatic. Yeah, no, he's actually really, really interesting. He did a very interesting critique of Foucault's, I want to say his Lather Lectures in Biopolitics, in a completely separate tome that I've been meaning to get to. I can't remember the title of it, but it's very well known. He's been very much so off of my radar because he is in Germany and a Conti and of this generation. So he's still, he's not someone I'm very conversational about. Obviously, this is the first time I'm reading him properly. But he it seems to be a very, very interesting thinker. It copulates with the other of itself by way of individual freedom. Capital grows inasmuch as people engage in free competition. Hereby, individual freedom amounts to servitude inasmuch as capital lays hold of it and uses it for its own propagation. That is, capital exploits individual freedom in order to breed. Oh, this is vaguely Wildradian. It is not the individuals who are set free by free competition. It is rather capital which is set free. The freedom of capital achieves self-realization by way of individual freedom. In the process, individuals degrade into the genital organs of capital. Individual freedom lends itself an automatic subjectivity. I have Lyotard's. I still will never be able to pronounce any of these names correctly, no matter how many times I read them. Libidinal economy lying around here somewhere. Good text, relevant text. Individual freedom lends itself to an automatic subjectivity of its own, which spurs it to reproduce actively. In this way, capital continuously brings forth living offspring. Today, individual freedom is taking on excessive forms. Ultimately, this amounts to nothing other than the excess of capital itself. New section, guys. Everyone. Oh no! It a hand spasm. Okay, so if you all haven't noticed yet, I do have a bit of a tremor. I just spilled apple cider on myself on live. Oh god. Anyway. Oh, this book, all told, is around 80 something. Just under 90. The Dictatorship of Capital. At a certain level of development, according to Marx, the forces of production, i.e., human labor, modes of work, the material means available, come into conflict with the dominant relations of production, i.e., conditions of ownership and domination. Contradiction arises because the forces of production never stop evolving. Thus, industrialization brings forth new forces of production that come into conflict with structures of ownership and government that still resemble feudal conditions. In turn, this contradiction entails social crises, pushes to change the relations of production. For Marx, the contradiction is to be eliminated by way of the proletariat struggle against the bourgeoisie, which will bring forth a communist social order. But counter to what Marx has assumed, communist revolution cannot resolve the contradiction between forces of production and relations of production. Production. The contradiction admits no dialectical. My German is really bad. Capitalism can always Aufbang. I'm sorry. That term. Capitalism can always escape into the future precisely because it harbors permanent and inherent contradiction. Accordingly, industrial capitalism has now mutated into neoliberalism and financial capitalism, which are implementing a post-industrial, immaterial mode of production, instead of turning into communism. As a mutant form of capitalism, neoliberalism transforms workers into entrepreneurs. Every time I read entrepreneurs, I can't, never mind. It is not communist revolution that is now abolishing the allo-exploited working class. Instead, neoliberalism is in the course of doing so. Today, everyone is an auto-exploiting laborer in his or her own enterprise. People are now master and slave in one. Even class struggle has transformed into an inner struggle against oneself. That's a point. There's a point in there, and I see it, but I wouldn't. That's not the way I would make that point necessarily. Indeed, absolutely. Should I EV colon Everett? Indeed. The cooperative multitude that Antonio Negri has exalted as the post-Marxist successor to the proletariat does not describe the contemporary mode of production. Rather, the conditions are defined by the solitude of an entrepreneur who is isolated and self-combating and practices auto-exploitation voluntarily. As such, it is a mistake to believe that cooperative multitude will overthrow the parasitic empire and bring forth a communist social order. The Marxist scheme to which Negri adheres will prove to have been yet another illusion. In fact, no proletariat exists under the neoliberal regime at all. There is no working class being exploited by those who own the means of production. This could either be a very well-made point or a very, very bad one. Okay. Let's see where this goes. I based on his body of work, I think I know where he's going with this, and it's an interesting one, but we'll see. When production is immaterial, everyone already owns the means of production to him or herself. The neoliberal system is no longer a class system in the proper sense. Oh, okay. It does not consist of classes that display mutual antagonism. This is what accounts for the system's stability. Today, the distinction between proletariat and bourgeoisie no longer holds either. Literally, proletarian means someone whose sole possessions are his or her children. Self-production is restricted by biological reproduction. But now the illusion prevails that every person, as a project free to fashion him or herself at will, is capable of unlimited self-production. This means that a dictatorship of the proletariat is structurally impossible. Today, the dictatorship of capital rules over everyone. This is very interesting. I'm just going to briefly go tangential for a moment, because I think usually within the first 5 to 6 pages of a new text, you can kind of get a feel for how someone makes their argument. And I on the horizon of seeing and empathizing in a way with his ultimate points and premises, I see that. But in that, I think he is making certain jumps of logic that don't quite hold, because essentially what he just said, it is, yes, absolutely, there is no clear proletariat bourgeoisie distinction in the current neoliberal capitalistic context, because everyone is held to exploit one another. And part of that is the doctrine of the individual. So I see that, but it's just the way he's hopping around, especially with the use of Negri. It may just not be because I'm super, super, super well versed in Marxist theory to follow this line of logic coherently, but I see it. I hold space for it. It just doesn't quite click with me, even if I see his points along that horizon. There's stuff in the chat. Hi, yeah, no, that agreed. I think that's kind of the way he's using proletariat and proletarian here is a bit, maybe I would use the term prescriptive and not actually, it doesn't hold in the logical system with which he's using to describe. Yeah. Okay. No, these are, I'm going to sit with that. I think that may be part of my confusion is my lack of intense literacy of proletariat bourgeoisie outside of like the 107 level of Marxist thought and analysis. But we'll see. Hold on one moment. Garon, what do you mean by that? The neoliberal regime transforms allo-exploitation into auto-exploitation. This process affects all classes. Such classless self-exploitation, which was something utterly unknown to Marx, renders impossible any social revolution based on the differences between the exploiters on the one hand and the exploited on the other. Indeed, given the auto-exploiting achievement subject's isolation, no political we is even possible that could rise up and undertake collective action. People who fail in the neoliberal achievement society see themselves as responsible for their lot and feel shame instead of questioning society or the system. Herein lies the particular intelligence defining the neoliberal regime. No resistance to the system can emerge in the first place. In contrast, when allo-exploitation prevails, the exploited are still able to show solidarity and unite against those who exploit them. Such is the logic on which Marx's idea of a dictatorship of the proletariat is based. However, this vision presupposes that relations of repression and domination hold. Now, under the neoliberal regime of auto-exploitation, people are turning their aggression against themselves. I'm sorry, this is where my comparative religions baseline comes in. Yes and no. This auto-aggressivity means that the exploited are not inclined to revolution so much as depression. Oh, where's Mark? Denzel. Yeah. That's I just want my cabin in the woods, guys. Folks. God, I hate saying folks in a non-explicitly Southern context. Where were we? In our world, we no longer work in order to satisfy our own needs. Instead, we work for capital, capital C. I do not have K-punk around here, unfortunately. And Garan, yes, unironically, may he rest in peace. Let's please not make jokes about people who committed suicide. Thank you. Capital with a capital C. The German is popping out. Capital generates needs of its own. Mistakenly, we perceive these needs as if they belong to us. Capital therefore represents a new kind of transcendence, which entails a new form of subjectification. We are being expelled from this sphere I can't. I like that cabin. It's a cool cabin. It's a little room. My favorite Boards of Canada track is the like extended, I think second or third on their A Beautiful Place Out in the Country EP. Why do all of the primitivists do bad things? That's all I'm gonna leave that at. Okay. We are being expelled from the sphere of lived immanence, where life relates to life instead of subjugating itself to external ends. Oh, yeah, no, Garon. You're good. I find a lot of people who don't necessarily it's not an uncommon thing to know. You're good. It's just sad. It makes me really sad. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, Boards of Canada. I love Boards of Canada. Okay. Emancipation from a transcendent order that is an order grounded in religious premises is the hallmark of modern politics. Only under modern conditions, when transcendental means of justification no longer possess any validity, is it genuine politics, the politicization, oh God, I hate that word, politicization of society as a whole held to be possible. Now, norms of action are supposed to be subject to negotiation at every level. Transcendence will yield to discourse immanent to society itself. Society, the reasoning goes, can construct itself anew purely from within on the basis of immanent properties. However, such freedom vanishes just as soon as capital achieves the status of being a new transcendency, a new master. When this occurs, politics lapses into servitude again. It becomes the handmaiden of capital. Do we really want to be free? Didn't we invent God so we wouldn't have to be free? This is such a Jewish question. Before God, we're all debtors, guilty. But guilt destroys freedom. Today, politicians appeal to high debt rates to explain that their freedom to act is massively restricted. Free from debt, that is, wholly free, we would truly have to act. I wonder how many. Does he have student loan debt? This has taken a suddenly dark turn. The ultimate new technology of neoliberal capitalism is student loan debt. That's what this is saying. Perhaps we run up debts. We run up debts perpetually so we won't need to do so. That is, we won't need to be free or responsible. No, don't our debts prove that we don't have the power to be free? Could it be that capital is a new god making us feel guilty and debt-ridden again? Walter Benjamin held that capitalism is a religion. Okay, as a religion scholar, I actually lean very much so to the unorthodox side of things when it comes to saying X thing is a religion, because secularity is my wider concentration, and the subject of my research. I've talked about this a bit, I think, in past streams and videos. I wouldn't say capitalism is a religion necessarily. Certain aspects of it have religious process and import. As he put it, capitalism represents the first case of cult that creates guilt, not atonement. Since there is no possibility of relieving debt and guilt, the state of unfreedom. Okay, no, I can't roll with that. That's not how that works. The state of unfreedom perpetuates itself. A vast sense of guilt that is unable to find relief seizes on the cult, not to atone for this guilt, but to make it universal. That's one of those. That's one of those. Religion is modeled on Christological norms statements, I think. But putting that aside, I see what he's getting at. The dictatorship of transparency. Initially, the internet was celebrated as a medium of boundless liberty. Microsoft's early advertising slogan, "Where do you want to go today?" suggested unlimited freedom and mobility on the web. As it turned out, such euphoria was an illusion. Today, unbounded freedom and communication are switching over into total control and surveillance. Can I get some Fs in the chats, guys? Y'all, Jesus. I'm so tongue-tied today. More and more social media resemble digital panoptica, keeping watch over the social realm and exploiting it mercilessly. We had just freed ourselves from a disciplinary panopticon. We still haven't done that. Then we threw ourselves into a new and even more efficient panopticon. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Jeremy Bentham's panopticon isolated inmates from each... Oh, jeez. Give me one moment. Oh, that's so interesting. That's really, really cool. I would, if you ever digitize it or elect to digitize it, I'd be really interested with res abstracta to give that a read. Because I think maybe part of the reason I'm not necessarily completely connecting with his logic, regardless of agree or disagree, is because this is such a short volume, and obviously he's definitely had to be limited through the editing process, because this was what? Yeah, this is essentially an extended essay, so it's very, very limited in what he can do with stuff. In contrast, the occupants of today's digital panopticon actively communicate with each other and willingly expose themselves. I've read too much about technology. That is, they collaborate in the digital panopticon's operations. Digital control society makes intensive use of freedom. This can only occur thanks to voluntary self-illumination and self-exposure. Oh no, don't. He does the thing. Digital Big Brother outsources operations to inmates, as it were. No, not the Ray Bradbury reference. Wait, Big Brother isn't Ray Bradbury. It's Orwell. Good lord, I need to get my post-dystopian references on lock. Accordingly, data is not surrendered under duress so much as it is offered out of an inner need. That is why the digital panopticon proves so efficient. Transparency is demanded in the name of the freedom of information, too. In reality, however, this amounts to nothing more than a neoliberal dispositif. It means turning everything inside out by force and transforming it into information. Interesting. Yeah, I totally see that. I really wish that he hadn't opened this with that. Because I think the panopticon framework for contemporary networking technologies has been dragged behind a barn, a server farm, and beaten to death. That's just my opinion, though. Please don't come at me. Under the immaterial mode of production that now prevails, more information and more communication mean more productivity, acceleration, and growth. Information represents a positive value inasmuch as it lacks interiority. It can, interesting. It can circulate independently, free from any and all context. I recently read a book for class, Apaldarai's Fear of Small Numbers, and he talks about capitalism, colonialism, and the issue of minoritization, and he actually does get into circulatory information flows. Fascinating. I highly recommend it. Oh. Terrence McKenna, Denzel, would totally agree with you. Just saying that I try to. I'm borderline hikikomori at this point, so I try to not think about it. Accordingly, the circulation of information admits acceleration at will for purely arbitrary reasons. Secrets, foreignness, and otherness represent impediments to unbounded communication. In the name of transparency, they are to be eliminated. Communication goes faster when it is smoothed out, that is, when thresholds, walls, and gaps are removed. That also means stripping people of interiority, which blocks and slows down communication. However, such emptying out of persons does not occur by violent means. Instead, it occurs as voluntary self-exposure. The negativity of otherness or foreignness is de-interiorized and transformed into the positivity of communicable and consumable difference. Diversity. Oh, yes, I'm very much so about this direction now. Another excellent text on the neoliberal diversity and tolerance discourse is Wendy Baker's Regulating Aversion, which I also read recently for a course. Highly, highly recommend, because I see where he's going now. I just really wish he hadn't opened with Big Brother. The dispositive of transparency affects other exteriorization in order to accelerate the circulation of information and speed communication. Ultimately, openness facilitates unrestricted communication, whereas closedness, reserve, and interiority obstruct it. The dispositive of transparency has further consequence of promoting total conformity. The economy of transparency seeks to suppress deviation. Total networking, total communication has already had leveling effect per se. Its effect is conformity. It is as if everyone were watching over everyone else even before intelligence agencies or secret services have stepped in to supervise and steer. Invisible moderators smooth out communication and calibrate it to what is generally understood and accepted. Such primary intrinsic surveillance proves as much more problematic than the secondary extrinsic surveillance undertaken by secret services and spying agencies. Neoliberalism makes citizens into consumers. Oh no, I'm off the train again. The freedom of the citizen yields to the passivity of the consumer. What? Wait. No, this is what it's like reading as an anarchist. I like my baseline of state is accepting that there are part of citizenship, part of affiliation is accepting certain. I'm trying to think of the most gentle, proper, correct way to say this on stream, because I do try and really temper down my viewpoints on this sort of thing on platforms. But you are held in contract with other people. Period. There is no freedom to this citizenship. That's not. I'm not making a value statement there. Just that he seems to have, I think, unintentionally highlighted a contradiction there, because part of citizenship is part of. I'm not going to finish that statement. As consumers, today's voters have no real interest in politics and actively shaping the community. Yes, he does. They possess neither the will nor the ability to participate in communal political action. Oh no. I don't like where this is going. I pull back. No opinions at the moment. Oh, the book I recommended was, did I say Wendy Baker or Wendy Brown? But the title is Regulating Aversion, and the first name of the author is Wendy. And the first initial of the last name is B. This is the learning disorder coming into play. I have a really hard time remembering certain words in relation to other certain things, but it's called Regulating Aversion, and it's excellent. I highly, highly recommend it. Yeah, sorry. But it's very, very good. So Regulating Aversion, and I also strongly recommend, if you're going to be reading that one, I also strongly suggest picking up, oh no, it happened again. Fear of Small Numbers by Apaldarai, but you're not going to really be able, I can't spell his name, Appadai, I think is how you spell his last name. But the title is Fear of Small Numbers, and it too is an extended essay in this vein. But it really is excellent. Very, very excellent. I swear I'm not making up references. These are books I read. I just have memory problems. Okay. Now let's get back to the vote blue no matter who. They react only passively to politics, grumbling and complaining as consumers do about a commodity or service they do not like. Politicians and parties follow this logic of consumption too. They have to deliver. What year? What year did he write this? It has a Jenny Holzer quote at the beginning, so it has to be very recent. Oh, 2017. Okay. Politicians and parties follow the logic of consumption too. They have to deliver. In the process, they become nothing more than suppliers. Their task is to satisfy voters who are consumers or customers. Yeah. I'm almost wondering if part of the Everett, yes. No, I'm glad you found it. If you could do me a favor and drop like the full title and the full author name in the chat as like a mental bookmark to me and also people who are following along and maybe very shy, I would really appreciate it. Because normally I try to do that, but I'm really ADHD right now. Yeah, no, and Garan, I kind of agree. It's because the thing is, I think I see the point he's trying to make, but at the same time, I'm almost wondering if the issue I'm having is a translation problem, because all of the footnotes are in German. It is also released by Verso, which I've had, depending. I don't want them to copyright strike me if they find out this channel exists, because I criticized particular translators they contracted with. because what he's saying is that within the political process, there's a commodification of welfare rights services of the citizen in relation to their ultimate fealty to the state. But that's a really weird way to put it. I don't completely. It's a bit of a, because he is a Foucauldian. This is a very weird way to go about a Foucauldian analysis of all of this. The transparency demanded of politicians today is anything but a political demand. Transparency is not called for in political decision-making processes. No consumer is interested in that. Instead, and above all, the imperative of transparency serves to expose or unmask politicians, to make them an item of scandal. Oh, me? By market anarchist, do you mean, thank you so much. Okay, it was Wendy Brown. Thank you so much. Do you mean a syndicalist? Syndicalist, Jesus. I can't. That's, no. Let me put it this way. My relationship to anarchism is as a methodology, and ultimately what we exist in is reprehensible and unsustainable. And I will stop at that if it could, because if I start talking about like the market, if I start talking about capitalism and exploitation, especially as it relates to it's a rant. It's a rant. It's a lot, and I do try to be very general and pluralistic in the way I mention my politics, because I do try, and always learn and approach things with an open mind, but at base, no, I'm not. I just want my cabin out in the woods. My beautiful place out in the country. Okay, so we're back to scandal. That was such a weird. The call for transparency presupposes occupying the position of a shocked spectator is not voiced by engaged citizens so much as by passive onlookers. Participation now amounts to grievance and complaint. With that, the society of transparency inhabited by onlookers and consumers has given rise to a spectator democracy. I know it is. I know. Like, let me put it this way. I'm from the country. And I ultimately don't have any real fidelity to a specific vision of anarchism and societal reconstruction. For me, anarchism is a methodology, and that, in a way, is why I do find myself at least a little bit little libidinally thrilled by minor accelerationist moments, like we're seeing with the GameStop stonks and that sort of thing. But for me, I have no. It's about doing right by my neighbor. That's what it boils down to. It's about community service and support and direct action and food not bombs and just helping people where you can. And the best way to do that for me is through and via an anarchistic framework. It comes from an ultimate baseline of compassion, and I don't know what that would look like on a metastructural scale post-capitalism. So I don't affiliate or identify or hold space for a particular vision of society in terms of, oh, this is what's going to look, that this is what we need, this is what we need to do. I just really just try to keep it to my local and small organization. So that's like my long response to "Are you a market anarchist?" slash the Anprim stuff. I just like cybernetics, and I like giving people food. And I think bodily autonomy is extremely important, and that's my opinion. That's my opinion on that. You know, that's a really interesting conversation, and maybe at some point I will do like a proper long actual stream exchange video essay rant about that. Because yes and no, I don't know. I don't know. I think that that's a really nice thing I appreciate about my position moving forward and exploring philosophy, because I am like a long time transhumanist. I am a long time anarchist, but in that, where do I draw the line of limitations, especially as someone who is disabled? Where do I draw certain lines and boundaries? How do I relate to the body? Especially as a Jew, I think the body is a sacred site, you know? So it's just really interesting. I don't know. That's an interesting thought, and I don't agree or disagree, but it's interesting. Oh, Gron, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's honestly really fun because I find myself really challenged every day by things, you know, I may not understand. And that's how you grow as a person. It was really nerve-wracking when I first started allowing myself to say I don't know and I can't let myself have an opinion on this thing. But it's fun. It's nice. It's like a warm hug of theory. And to a point you could say it's because I'm ideologically commitment phobic. But in a way, I think it's just important to do what you can where you can. And part of that is stuff I do like this. Oh, Denzel, bless your heart. I don't mean that in the really mean, rude Southern way. I mean that in a like I'm Shomer Nagaya, so I don't like touch people that I'm not dating, but like emotionally, that's like your hand is right here, and my hand is like bless you. Uh, my ultimate statement, and this is the statement I have on land. I can't avoid him. I'm a Jew. I, on multiple levels, the current ideology he subscribes to, as a thinker, as a public figure, I find absolutely reprehensible. But in his early works, I do think maybe not, I don't subscribe to that newsletter, but there is stuff worth interrogating. There's stuff always worth interrogating. And in that, and I say this at the beginning, I think of my Fanged Numina reading from a year or two ago, I can't remember anymore. It's like playing Tourism to Mania, and there's something very interesting about his prose style. So you're good. It's a fun rabbit hole, but I actually really highly suggest if you're interested more in, I suppose, holistic transhumanism. Oh, where did you find a copy? Could you please tell me where you found a copy? Because I can't find a copy anywhere. Fanged Numina. It's one of those things where I actually have a despot shelf of books by authors I loathe or find reprehensible, and I kind of quarantine them all together. Like I have a book by Saddam Hussein up there, Gaddafi, the Green Book, that sort of thing. And I want Fanged Numina on my despot shelf. But with before I get back to the reading, because I know this is a very, very long tangent, I just wanted to say, Denzel, there is like empathetic transhumanism. I would suggest looking at like Mackenzie Wark, Helen Hester, even some of the xenofeminist writings. Look at Sadie Plant, obviously Donna Haraway, although she doesn't subscribe to the transhumanist label, she is like very much so informative of how we relate to the technology and the self. The self. And in that, did I already mention Mackenzie Wark? But Mackenzie Wark, and I was never, it was a bit before my time, and I was never actively involved with, yeah, it's interesting stuff. I think the compartmentalization I get as a religion scholar makes reading that sort of thing really, really easy. Like with Qutb, there's like a lot of screeds against Jews, and I'm just like, interesting. I'm putting myself on the back burner because I just want to know more. You know, I think it's one of the reasons I can easily say I don't understand X thing, because I don't. But yeah, so regarding transhumanism, the extropian group, they are defunct, but I would suggest seeing if you can track down via like archive.org their old website, because they do have a reading list of extropian manifestos essentially, and they're very interesting. They're a very interesting chapter in early transhumanist internet that don't. And this is the thing I never got with land. This is one of the things I never quite jived with, especially in early land versus like Plant and Haraway, is that land in his approach to the body, it's not only aggressively, it reminds me a bit of Bate, it's aggressively misanthropic. And I don't want to have to hate myself to enjoy being more. And that's what it comes down to, I think, especially as like a xenofeminist, as a cyborg feminist. I want to be more, but that doesn't mean I'm any less than I am now. So that's just something to pick up on and be very critical of as you read Land moving forward, is the way he relates to the body, is the way he writes is distinctly informed by a certain necrology of the body that isn't really effective or productive for marginalized people. And that is a strand that does show in his earlier work, and that's something to be very sensitive to. Anyway, we are now back to page 10. Oh my gosh. Okay, I did really miss this. An essential component of freedom is informational self-determination. The 1984 ruling on the census made by the German Federal Constitutional Court already declared if citizens cannot know who knows what, when, and on what occasion about them, the right to informational self-determination is incompatible with social order and the legal order facilitating the same. That said, this ruling was made at a time when people commonly believed that they were facing the state as an instance of domination, which wrested information from the citizens against their will. Such a long time is now past. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Today we voluntarily expose ourselves without, and just for the record, I do know the historical political context he's writing this in, like with 1980s Germany, but also. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Please feel free to comment a link to your channel or your content. And I'm Trinchera virtual. That would be really cool. I need more people to listen to that read weird stuff. That would be so cool. Thank you. Today, I'm just going to skip the rest of this. Oh, it's in Spanish. That's still commented. I have Spanish listeners. I have listeners it's amazing, actually. I know I have listeners all through Latin America who are Spanish speakers. Mine's just French and German and some Arabic. It's all useless stuff. So comment it anyway, and I'll try to pin it, okay? Thank you. Oh my gosh, okay. For our own free will, we put any and all conceivable information ourselves about on the internet without having the slightest idea of who knows what, when, or on what occasion. This lack of control represents a crisis of freedom to be taken seriously. Indeed, given the data that people make available willy-nilly, the very idea of protecting privacy is becoming obsolete. Okay, respect. He's right. But also, I love that this is like a very scholarly text, and he just does that. Today, we are entering the age of digital psychopolitics. It means passing from passive surveillance to active steering. As such, it is precipitating a further crisis of freedom. Now, free will itself is at stake. Free will has been at stake, man. Is saying there is no free will like a controversial opinion? We certainly have the capability for that. Hashem blessed us with brains, with limited comport, but it's free will has long been. Yeah, free will, 2 question marks. I completely agree. It's been done at stake, sir. Perceived free will is at stake. Thank you. The mirage of autonomy is at stake. Big data. Okay, I now really like him because he just throws out these very bold statements that the translator is being wild with. I love it. Oh, I was joking about it being useless. It's like a requirement for my program. I was like B2 2 years ago, and I haven't used it in a while. So if it's any solace, that's just me being bitter because I took like French for 5 years in high school and I hated it. I'm so sorry. It's a beautiful language. Remorse. That was terrible. God. I hold space for you. You gave us all the good philosophers. Big data with a big D and a big B. Big data is a highly efficient psychopolitical instrument that makes it possible to achieve comprehensive knowledge of the dynamics of social communication. Bold. I love it. This knowledge is knowledge for the sake of domination and control. Hey. Oh, I thought you said Spanish. Latin is scary. We don't talk about Latin in this chat. But I thought I read Spanish because I saw the S, and I was like, they're both romantic languages. We can all be friends. Please, no entomological discourse in my chat, please. I care about all the languages. This data. I wish this was big Dadaism. That's actually one of my favorite art movements. Prussian Archangel is one of my favorite sculptures of all time. I strongly suggest Googling that right now in a separate tab or whatever. Prussian Archangel. Brilliant stuff. I love Dadaism. It has like no sense of subtlety. I am here for it. I'm a Jew. I have to be here for it. This knowledge is knowledge for the sake of domination and control that facilitates intervention in the psyche and enables influence to take place on a pre-reflexive level. Pre-reflexive level. Oh, I hold space for that. For human beings to be able to act freely, the future must be open. Big dot eyes up in here. I'm Randy. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad that someone Googled Prussian archangle that word, and I actually saw it in person once. I went on when I was a youth. I went on a museum trip to a big building in the United States. Trying not to give specifics here, and I saw it in person. And it was like, I want to say about 6.5, 7 feet long, just hanging from the ceiling. And I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old. And it was just, wow. That's when I was doomed. For human beings to be able to act freely, the future must be open. However, big data is making it possible to predict human behavior. Oh yeah, no, it was I actually specifically wanted to go to that exhibit as a kid because I was a really big-brained youth. I took myself extremely seriously. And I was like, I want to go see this cool art exhibit. It's very edgy. It was actually life-changing. I'm so glad I saw it at that very impressionable age. This means that the future is becoming calculable and controllable. It's been there. Digital psychopolitics transforms the negativity of freely made decisions into the positivity of factual states. Indeed, persons are being positivized into things which can be quantified, measured, and steered. Needless to say, no thing can be free, but at the same time, things are more transparent than persons. Big data has announced the end of the person who possesses free will. I don't want to say he got in a big fight with his cell phone provider, but this feels like someone who had a really bad, like, I don't even mean this facetiously, because I think there's extremely formative negative reactions we have specifically with our that would actually also explain his minor rant saying the working class doesn't exist. Someone had a bad he had a bad experience with a German customer service agent for his phone carrier. And this happened, I feel almost. This isn't to diminish his statements. I do like it. I just love how bold that is. Every dispositive, every technology or technique of domination brings forth characteristic devotional objects. Ooh, here we go. This is the Foucault that are employed in order to subjugate. Such objects materialize and stabilize domination. Such objects materialize and stabilize dominion, forgive me. Devotion and related words mean submission or obedience. Smartphones represent digital devotion. Indeed, they're the devotional objects of the digital period. Oh no! As a subjectification apparatus, the smartphone works like a rosary. Oh no! Oh no! No! Which, because of its ready availability, represents a handheld device too. Oh no! If someone wants to know, I can't let myself get into this tangent without being prompted. If someone wants to know why I'm going on like extreme oh no's, please say so. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue like, oh no. Both the smartphone and the rosary serve the purpose of self-monitoring and control. Oh no. Power operates more effectively when it delegates surveillance to discrete individuals, like is the like is the digital amen. No! when we click like, we are bowing down to the order of domination. Oh no! The smartphone is not just an effective surveillance apparatus, it is also a mobile confessional. Oh no! Facebook is the church, the global synagogue. Oh, he did not. Did he just do like the Judeo-Christian values thing? Oh, he's German. I can't blame him. The Germans don't have I apologize to any Germans here, any Germans in the chat, but it specifically regards to the German scholarly institutions, there's like not a super great track record of differentiating, like, okay, for the record, Judeo-Christian doesn't exist. I'm gonna finish this. Facebook is the church, the digital synagogue, literally assembly of the digital. And that ends chapter 1 of Psychopolitics. Okay, so I'm gonna finish my reading for tonight there. But here's, okay, Everett, before you go down that track record, please listen to what I'm saying, because he actually just made a serious logical error, like an actual dialectical error in his analysis of implicitly, and this is, people don't realize there's a name for this. It drives me crazy. So essentially what he was doing is when people try this, I can give the screed. Okay, so as you all may know, I'm a scholar of religions. I somehow finessed my way. Well, no, you haven't distracted me. I'm done with the chapter. It only took me like however long to get through it because I was talking so much about how some of these things were. But so as you all may know, I'm a scholar of religions. I somehow finessed my way into this with a lot of crackpot theories surrounding technology and religion and cybernetics and how people, I'm trying not to give too much of it online. I literally have like charts describing this. How people self-construct through technology as a mode of religious processes. And what he just did is he essentially did the thing where when people say something is a religion, what they're doing is they mean, oh, this thing can be modeled on Christianity because X thing is being deified, which is like a big no. Big no in how you discuss religion, one, in general, because obviously Christological processes are complex and also very different from every other religious process and affiliation and group ever. However, because of the history of the West, obviously the way we relate to religion as an academy is informed intrinsically by Christian normativity. And so when he says he's doing the exact thing I hate, which is technology, I actually have literally prepped this specific screed regarding explaining people my field and what I research. Like literally, when someone says technology is a religion, what they're saying is that the technology itself, the commodity, is being deified through a series of processes. And that is the thing, that when technology is a religion, religion means to deify. That's not what religion is. Religion is a series of descriptive processes for how people relate to themselves, one another, self-actualize, and honestly, fundamentally, it's modes of describing investment and revelation. And Randy, if this is something you're interested or into, I strongly, like, this is, I'm a Jew, this is my Bible, is the work of Edward Bailey. I actually just, I can't talk about this yet, but I may be a real scholar, a proper scholar soon regarding this, because yeah. But when we talk about religion, we're describing a series of exactly, and it is fundamentally rooted on not even active Christian affiliation or deification. It is the actual culturally Christian way of how people relate to religion in social modes. Because people see Christianity, they hear Christ. And so therefore Christianity is deification. Religion, by extension, is deification. So, okay, this specifically, what I just flashed was Edward Bailey's Implicit Religion in Contemporary Society. I may do a separate video on this at some point, if in the future, if everything goes well. But my qualm goes deeper. It goes so much deeper. So it is a very interesting poetic concept. However, what he's doing in drawing that particular metaphor of, so technology equals religion, therefore, if we model the aspects, the actual sites of interfacing with said religion, the smartphone is a rosary, it completely misunderstands how, and this is literally something I'm actually doing a process, like a project on right now, is how I'm not at a loss for words. I'm trying to hold back what I'm talking about because I'm publishing on this. There's only so much I should say. I'm currently doing a project about technological self-revelation and my crackpot ideas about religion and implicit religion and technology through interfacing. For example, let's see if I can give an example. How people, like, I'm not disputing what he's saying about smartphones being sites of self-revelation. However, when the fundamental logical error he's doing is that in modeling that metaphor on the rosary, misunderstands what the rosary does. It makes religion about belief when it's not. And it makes smartphone uses about belief and this deification narrative of religion and interfacing when it's not. And let me actually pull this back out. Okay, no, the like is the digital amen. I don't even need to get into like that, why that's not how that works. And also Judeo-Christian is fake news. That doesn't exist. That's kind of what he was getting into at the end there. Judaism, historically speaking and theologically speaking, is much closer to Islam than Christianity for obvious reasons. But the thing is let's specifically break this down to his terms with devotional objects that are every dispositif, every technology or technique of domination brings forth characteristics, devotional objects that are employed in order to subjugate. No. That's not how that works. And he's also doing that thing where in embracing a Christian normative understanding of religion and then using that baseline within his metaphor, it is tainting the understanding of religion as a series of intrinsic processes of the self that are then expressed through explicit religion, like the church, or implicit religion, which is what Edward Bailey's work goes into. And he's not a very well-known religious scholar, so I'm not going to fault someone for not understanding that. It's a very small, very, very, very small community. But the thing is the reason why we're seeing these modes of affiliation, of self-revelation, of kinship, even in outside of explicit religion is because they are intrinsic to ourselves that are then expressed out through our modes of identification and community making. Like, for example, in Implicit Religion, he talks about the religious nature of a parish. No, Randy, exactly. I spread the good word of Edward Bailey, because even if like my long term, I still don't quite know if this is the direction I will ultimately stay in. It has intrinsically informed the way I relate to spirituality as a religion scholar and technology, and I will continue to be a strong stan of his until the end of time, because he's the first scholar I found that, even if I don't agree with all of his methodology, and let me put it this way, I agree with his construction of the integrating foci and the ultimate modes of self-revelation. However, he also does still make some of the ideological errors in terms of let's draw parallels between explicit religion to justify my analysis of secular life. Oh, so my BA is religions, and my MA is, I'm currently in grad school, I'm in my MA program, is in religions and new technologies. It's a self-designed program. I love my school. But yeah, so I say all of this to say is that the way self-revelation works within an interface is not, you don't draw parallels to explicit religion to justify it, because you're just centering these discourses of religion and devotion, one, on power, and two, on a cultural framework that just isn't relevant and isn't productive, because that's what, like I said, that's not how a rosary works. Like, as even as an allegorical or a literal engagement as an object, that's not how a rosary works. That's not how Amen works. That's not how doing communion works. If we're going to, that's another very common metaphor, or trying to think of another very common one that I can break down in the pulpit, especially in the South. It's a very common metaphor people use. So oh yeah, so there, that's my screed on that. He took that, I could see the horizon of where he was going, and I withhold agreement or disagreement until I like really engage with it. But his baseline for that, I feel, is ideologically fundamentally misinformed as it relates to implicit sacredness. Oh, greatest stages. Have you read Bailey? No, I haven't. I'm wondering if your statements there are informed, because I'm still forming my opinions on like the actual existential nature of religion in itself. But if you've read Bailey, I'd be really, really. Oh, you're a religious sociologist. Oh, yeah, no, okay. So interesting. Interesting. Yes. Yes. The thing is I'm coming at this from an exclusive, like almost exclusively philosophical standpoint, and the way Edward Bailey is used is almost exclusively in a religious sociological standpoint. So that's like interesting, because yes, now that I know we're working with the same terminological import, I see you. And I don't maybe not, I wouldn't use conceal, I would use attenuate, maybe, because it is a way of expressing these fundamental modes of life. But interesting. Okay, that's really cool. No, you should definitely. I don't have any people. If you want to shoot my Facebook page a message. I would love to talk about this more with you. I don't really have a lot of people that are also in religions and also into weird stuff. As I'm sure you know, people who are into religious studies or comparative religions are coming at it usually like 95% of the time like, let's study theology or let's study a particular tradition, when that's not what this is. Anyway, okay, that was a very long screed and a very long rant. I'm so sorry. I have a lot of feelings about this, and this is something like de-assimilating. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Wait. Thanks. De-assimilating a Christian normative approach to it's in the description for one of my videos, it'll be linked, and I think there's also like a little icon at the top of my channel. I don't know how I'm a boomer. Also, ironically, I don't have a smartphone, so I can't like direct you on the interface. Oh no, that so start with Durkheim. That's where everything starts. You're going to need to read Geertz, his essay, doing like the fundamental definition of religion, just so you know, like the terminological import that other scholars in the future are working with, even though Geertz. Yes. Okay. Oh, I'm so definitely Durkheim. Yeah, just fill in my chair. But yeah, where was I? I was talking about something in particular. Let's archaeology this. So Facebook, religious sociology, Facebook, talking about, de-assimilating. Learning how to de-assimilate these grand metaphors people tend to make, like my smartphone like is a rosary because it's always there and it's a devotional object. Yeah, drive me absolutely crazy. But those types of ways we relate to symbology and spirituality are so embedded in us, and in turn, because that's so embedded in us, both through socialization and also this is going to be like a long-term journey in figuring out intrinsic and implicit spirituality and sacredness. But I do think, oh, no, I definitely will. Thank you much. But there's something very intrinsic to this. So I can understand the inclination to model commodity and our relationship to commodity on that language. But doing so ultimately bastardizes also how codified commodity is, and also our relationship with the sacred. Because, like, for example, like right now, one of my projects is about a certain gaming website is a religion. And the way I say it's a religion is because there are modes of self-revelation and augmentation via this platform that are uniquely, implicitly religious in its technocultural expression. The way insert gaming website is a religion is, the way I say that is not the way he says technology is a religion, because the way he says technology is a religion is just bad and wrong and misinformed, and I think really misses a lot of like the fundamental beauty and promise in sacredness, in devotion, and that people find fulfillment in revelation in a multiplicity of ways, and that this is one of the issues I have, and I'm so excited that there's someone in the chat that like studies religious sociology, because I think you may be in a similar almost wordlessness and trying to put things to terminology with where I am about these sorts of things, because it is so intrinsic to us, you know? but I just think I just think people are really wonderful. And I want to know more about why we are the way we are. And religion is at the heart of everything. Even not even. Religion is at the heart of everything, especially outside of explicitly religious spaces. And the way religion happens in other spaces doesn't need to be modeled on explicitly religious form or framework to be, one, valid, or two, key. Oh, as an evolution. Oh, I think I actually. It's very interesting. No, I would definitely like to pick your brain about that. Do connect with the my Facebook page about that. And interesting. And for the record, the imposter syndrome is strong. I've had like actual proper academics listen to me and are like, I believe in you recently, very recently. And I'm like, why? I totally understand. It's like you're trying to articulate the darkness because it's just there. It's just part of us. But oh no, absolutely not. Religion, implicit and explicit, stems from a desire to God. No, this is where it's about love. No, it's not. No, absolutely. And this is one of the interesting things about the study of religion, in particular, is that you saw in the mid 20th century, you saw this shift from theological studies to anthropological. And the history of anthropology has been pretty rife with some messy stuff. So the building of that and the evolution of religious sociology and anthropology has been, I deeply, deeply admire it. It's so cool. I love my field. The ritual is primary. Yeah. 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 No. It's like everything, like all of my answers to every question, it's a yes and a no. The religion, yes and no. I have like an hour long I have an hour long answer to that question. But primarily no. Hi, kitty. This is one of the tricky things about sacredness and religion, is that how much of our language warps the way we approach things that are very intrinsically there. Like, in using the term ritual to describe an action or an activity, that obviously gives it more weight, Oh no, definitely. Definitely. And that's the thing, as someone who is not currently in I'm in the very navel gazy circle jerky end of things with philosophically oriented dissection, where I'm very much so removed from the anthropological and sociological ends of things. So there absolutely is going to be an ethnocentric background to it, but I didn't realize it was still like a super big issue. Obviously there's the meta, but oh no, I definitely have. He's on the reading list, Denzel. But anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. I'm getting into rant mode, into ramble mode. I think this is probably a good place to end it. I just want to make sure I have the re-access. Okay. Oh no, absolutely. The stream will be saved. Everything's going to be saved. Let me just make sure I have the chat replay on. How do I do that? Edit. Okay. So hold on one moment. So live chat, enable live chat, allow live chat to replay, because I think it's really important that people be able to, contextualize things. But I thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys, and just listening to me ramble about religion. I'm sorry for being so out of it. I've had a bit of a migraine all day, so it's been not super. So I'm glad to have just kind of come back to base and just chilled out. And wait, graded stages, I gotta do the would I be ashamed if my advisor saw me do this at this exact moment? Nah, he knows I'm weird. Yeah. Cute. Hey, kitty. Wait, Augustus may want to say goodnight. Augustus, come here. You wanna come here? Hold on. My kitty cat wants to say goodnight to everyone. Wait, what was that? What was that? You gonna say goodnight? Oh, I'm sorry. Good night, baby. So, good night from me and Augustus. I really appreciate the good vibrations, everyone. Back to the to the old grind. Okay, let's see if I can end my stream. Wait, what's my sign off going to be tonight? It's not going to be psychopolitical. Because we've obviously demonstrated I have a religion scholar, implicitly sacred. Wait, okay. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Signing off from your techno spiritualist, implicitly sacred, anti-psychopolitical doomer GF. Good night.